Welcome to the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the journey of an awakening spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Welcome everyone to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. The purpose of the show is to help you realize you are not alone. You are in control of your life. It does not matter what your lot in life is or where you came from. We have all felt pain, suffering, hurt, abandonment, loneliness, hopelessness, etc. This show helps you to take those dark moments and turn them around to create a whole new you. We were taught to be a certain way, act a certain way, conform to society. Being socialized is not bad, but it puts constraints on us. The guests I bring on the show are telling you their story of where they came from, the obstacles they overcame, and where they are today. They are sharing the tools they use to recreate themselves and their life. Some of the guests are still in their process, beginning a new process, comfortable in their process, or even reinventing themselves. They are giving you tools that they use to gain insight into themselves, to take control of their life, and become the person they are today. On podcast.kathleenmflanagan.com is a list of the guests that have been on the show with their contact information. I am aware that you may resonate with one or several of them. My desire is that this becomes a community where you have access to the people you wish to align with and utilize the tools that they have, as well as the tools being offered on kathleenmflanagan.com. AwakeningSpirit.com is an aromatherapy-based body care line that offers alternative healing remedies that uses natural and organic ingredients. We are offering a 40% discount by entering Brave TV into the coupon code. The products are guaranteed. If a product is not working, please contact me and we can reformulate the product specifically for you. Grandma'sNaturalRemedies.net is a CBD company that uses essential oils in every blend and has broad spectrum or an isolate. Every product is tested and the lab results are on the website. We are offering a 20% discount by entering Brave TV and the coupon code. I start the show every week with sound from the tuning forks. I bring in love, happiness, balance. This sets the tone for the show and brings out the best in both myself and my guest. Let's begin. Today I have Sophie Deslauriers. I hope I pronounced her correctly. And she comes from humble beginnings and has accomplished the unexpected in her life. She has thrived through some of life's major challenges: bankruptcy, divorce after 18 years, cancer, and having a baby in the pandemic. She is known for her expertise in sales and leadership. Previously, she mentored and coached executives and sales teams at some of North America's largest corporations. Now she has expanded her practice to support individuals, entrepreneurs, and executives to reclaim their power with a focus on young people. She believes that your history does not define your destiny, that you can change your stars. Her mission is to support you and the next generation of decondition you from systematic conditioning and empower your independent thinking, personal power, emotional intelligence, business acumen, and sales skills so you show up confidently in life and build the life you really want with more choice, health, wealth, and love. Welcome, Sophie.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here as well. I did a little bit more looking into your website about
Oh,
just who you are a little bit more, and watched your video, and I really find what you're doing is very empowering, but we know that's not where you started from. So I would love for you to share with our audience what your journey to becoming an awakening spirit has been.
sure. I started from very humble beginnings. My parents divorced when I was about 2 years old. Um, and I lived with my mom mostly, so I didn't have much of a father figure around when I was younger. Um, my mom was in a pretty serious electrocution accident when I was about 10 years old, which rendered her unable to walk. She went from a wheelchair to crutches to canes. And what happened was that she was taking a picture and her feet were wrapped around a metal ground stool. And unfortunately, there was no ground in the, back in the day, they used to plug in the cameras for flash, and there was no ground in the electrical box, in the outlet box. So it grounded on her feet because her feet were bare feet over the metal stool. And what happened was her feet like blew up like 10, 15 times the regular size. They were just so swollen. So
Mm.
she had to get like customized cast boots to wear for shoes because her feet just wouldn't fit in regular shoes. So that was a pretty traumatic experience when I was younger. I put myself through university. I was an OSAP child. Just fast forwarding my life, I got married fairly young. I was about 23 years old when I got married. I was married for 18 years. At about the age of 42, after an 18-year marriage, we decided to consciously uncouple. We just were on different paths in life. It really does happen when people say you grow apart. Like, I used to hear that when I was younger and didn't really understand, but now I do, having gone through it. And that was a pretty big heartbreak for me to go through a divorce after 18 years. This same year I was going through the divorce, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. At the time, I had lived a pretty big life. My ex-husband and I built a thriving business. We built a real estate portfolio. Basically, we came from nothing and we built it all up over the 18-year marriage, which is one of our successes. But I never experienced the role of being a mother. And so when I had these desires about the age of 37, you know, that good old biological clock is a real thing. Again, it wasn't something I really understood until like TikTok was happening. It kind of just means like time's running out. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had already had the desire and the decision to have a child. But now this complicated things for me. The doctors wanted me to do 25 radiation treatments and 2 years of tamoxifen. And so at the age of 42, pretty much I was considered a geriatric mom, not because of my own age, but when you think about the age of your eggs, I mean, they really don't live much longer than that. I mean, like, I think it's an unrealistic expectation to think a woman's eggs are still great at the age of 50, right? So at the age of 42, it would make sense. I would be considered a geriatric. I mean, I took quite offense to that in the beginning, but like when I started to do the calculation, it's like, eggs kind of, your ovaries kind of like, anyways, I was going to say they're kind of like dogs, they multiply in years. It's not really like a human year. So they sat me down. It was a very serious conversation. They were like, Sophie, I had stage 1 breast cancer in my right breast, and they were able to take it out with a lumpectomy. I have breast implants. So when they did the initial biopsy, it came back inconclusive. And so they actually had to do the lumpectomy and send it off for testing for us to know whether or not it was, cancer. And, one of the great things about that is I live by the motto that I cut cancer out before I even knew I had it. And so I really just pay attention to energy now, to what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And if anything just doesn't feel good for me, I just pretty much stay away from that, is one of the lessons I learned. But going back to the story, is like I really wanted to be a mother, and the doctors were very set on me having treatment to keep me safe. And I didn't really understand why it was so pushed on me to do 25 radiation treatments when it was only going to reduce the chances of cancer coming back by 15%. And the doctor was like, we recommend treatment to keep you safe. And I wasn't a candidate for chemotherapy, thank goodness. But the doctor did tell me that some people do chemotherapy for a 1% benefit, that the cancer doesn't come back. And because I was considered a younger woman at the time, most women live into their 80s, there was a lot of time for the cancer to come back. And so they wanted me to do treatment. I refused treatment to get pregnant. And the conversation was like, well, what's it going to be like to be a pregnant woman if the cancer comes back? Because pregnancy was a risk for the cancer to recur because I had an estrogen dominant cancer. So pregnancy increases your estrogen. And I had to sit with that. And I came to the conclusion for myself that it was easy. It was I could live with failure. I had failed several times in my life, but regret, like, that's a different feeling. And I just couldn't live with the regret of not trying. I had already experienced a big life. I used to drive around in Lamborghinis. I had a house in Miami, used to wear red bottoms. I ate at all fancy restaurants. Like, I had that kind of life, and it just was very unfulfilling for me. So at this point in my life, I was making some very serious choices so that I could have a different future for myself. And the only way I didn't really know myself was how I would be as a mother. And I felt like that was would be my most compelling growth opportunity. And so I went for it. And my partner and I, at the time, I had repartnered after my divorce. My partner and I were blessed with I got pregnant 8 months after my lumpectomy. We did it natural. I did go to a fertility clinic because of my age. The great thing about that is the technology at the fertility clinic far surpasses that of the regular doctor's office. So I was under excellent care. And unfortunately, I got pregnant in the pandemic. But the great thing about that was there were no lineups. So I didn't really have to wait too long in the doctor's office. And the obstetrician or the gynecologist, the gentleman at the fertility clinic, I'm not exactly sure what his distinction is in terms of doctorates, but he basically told me that at the end of the week, all the doctors sit at the round table and they talk about all the pregnancies and how everyone's doing. And I was having a miracle baby. Like, no one at the table could understand, based on my age, based on what I just went through, how I was having such a flawless pregnancy. So I was so blessed. Today we have a 3-year-old baby boy. And I really come from the thought process that there is opportunity inside of crisis. And I feel like I went through 3+1 heartbreaks. I had the heartbreak of the divorce. Like, it's whether or not you choose to consciously uncouple or not, after 18 years, that's going to create some sort of void. And there's a part of you that you got to let go of. And like, there's a heartbreak with that. Cancer was a heartbreak for me. I felt like I disappointed myself and my body. Maybe like God was doing me wrong. The universe was doing me wrong. I had to walk away from a thriving business because of the divorce. That created a big void for me. And then the pandemic, I think, was a heartbreak for everybody. I went through all of that at the same time. So today I really have a desire to support individuals through heartbreak as well, because I feel like because of the way I went through those 3 massive heartbreaks at once, I feel like I have some mastery over it. And because I was able to thrive through it and be healthy enough to get pregnant at the age of, I was 43 when I got pregnant. Like, at that age, after that type of health crisis, I just feel like I can help people connect the dots and make sense of some of the things that don't make sense and help them heal through some of the more challenging things to heal through. And so it's part of the body of work that I do now.
What an amazing story. That's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Everybody has a lot, from just starting the interviewing process on the show and talking to people prior to coming on the show. I'm just blown away by the obstacles that people have gone through, including myself, and how many years did I think that I was the only one out there suffering. And most of us probably thought that because of the way our society is, that we're supposed to keep everything inside. But the thing that I like to go back to the childhood, because there's so much, and we'll do that after we take a break, but I'm going to finish this thought first.
Sure.
The whole point is when we take that, we're still formed. Things happen, and I'm sure your mother's electrocution had a lot to do with maybe where you are today, because it built something inside of you. Instead of taking it as a victim, you used it as some sort of an empowering tool. And I want to go further into the tools that you used when we come back from break to be where you are today.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host with The Journey of an Awakening Spirit, and we are talking to Sophie Deslauriers.
Deslauriers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I knew I was butchering your name.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So what were the steps that you took to get where you are from the time of your mother's electrocution? Because I know that was traumatic on very many levels for you. And what you did to get yourself through college, and then to have that amazing thriving business that of course didn't bring as much fulfillment and joy and happiness that we think money's going to do. And then the tragedies that come again to get you where you are, because I mean, you're radiant as far as I see you. You're just a very glowing, radiant, happy woman. And what were those steps coming from that past?
So I went to university. I was an OSAP child. I opened a college pro painting franchise. That didn't necessarily go so well for me, unfortunately. So I actually, I stripped my way through university to pay off that loan. When you do a college pro painting franchise, you start with a $10,000 debt. And to tell you the story is they thought I was an articulate young lady and would do well with very wealthy people. So I think this is like 20 years ago, basically back then, still now, but stereotyping the man ran the house. They gave me a territory which was old Guelph, which was 4-story Victorian homes, and I was petrified of heights. So you can just imagine, this little girl and what they didn't know about me is I was intimidated by people with money because I didn't come from money. And yet they put me into a territory with people who were very affluent because of the way that I communicate. So it wasn't a match actually for me. And I was terrified of heights. So when the man of the house would ask me to climb a ladder to go see if the soffit needed to be painted, it was like, that was a conundrum for me because I was like petrified to do that. I did get smart and hire myself a professional painter, and he had a team, and he bid the job to me, and then I would upsell it. That worked, but I didn't make enough money to go back to school for the next semester. I was in semesters. And so what I saw was my only option was to start stripping. And so I did. And so I think I had maybe 18 months left of school. I ended up paying off my OSAP loan in like a year, paid my way through school, and like that. And then from there, I started a program called Landmark Education. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a global personal development program. And that started at about the age of 23 years old. And that really went to work on my mindset, my leadership, my ability to take responsibility for myself, my communication skills, my belief systems. And I was inside that work for 7 years. I became a volunteer inside of that work. I started to lead that work. And so that really helped me reframe and reshape how I viewed myself and how I viewed the past. and created a foundation for everything that I did from that point forward. From there, I started doing this a very similar work, but inside the realm of relationship, like the dynamic of woman and man, romantic relationship. And then from there, that was called the Sterling Institute of Relationship by Justin Sterling, which is out of New York, it's very interesting because he segregates the genders, the sexes, sorry. And so you're in a room of all women led by a man, and it's specifically designed to help you see how you operate inside of a romantic relationship. And interesting enough, because I didn't necessarily have my father around so much, it really started to show me the gap of how I didn't necessarily know how to relate to a man because I didn't have my father around. So that, and the whole premise, not the whole premise, but one of his messages is like the divorce rate is masculinizing women and feminizing boys because the mother is taking on both roles, and the female child, the girl child, is not learning how to interact and get intimacy and be in a relationship with a man, and the boy is not learning what a man role looks like. So it's diluting how, like, my generation forward is actually viewing themselves as a man or a woman inside of a relationship, which was really interesting work for me to do. And a lot of growth happened there. And then I went on to get certified as a coach. And then that's how I married sales and coaching and leadership, because I was already a very strong salesperson. It was just a natural thing for me. I was really great listener, asking questions. But what I did well was I used to ask for the sale, which I found later on in life that's the big thing that most people don't do. And I just, it was natural for me. I'm like, I did all this work. Do you want to buy? Like, it was just basically, do you want to buy? This is like as simple as it comes down to. And from there, I started traveling across North America, training executives in sales and leadership. I worked with very large organizations. So like here in Canada, it would be like the big banks, like Bank of Montreal, CIBC, TD Bank. In the States, I worked with BlackRock, iShares, US Cellular. So very large organizations. In the sales vertical of the organization and with the sales teams, I taught them how to conduct this consultative sales meeting. I taught them communication, negotiating, and presenting skills. I taught them closing skills. And then the leaders I would work with to teach them how to be more coach-like so they could empower their teams rather than just tell them what to do. The concept is it doesn't matter how great your strategy is if you can't get the team to align and execute, and strategy means nothing. The company that gets a team to align and execute is the company that tends to do the best because they have the manpower behind it. So from there, I did that for several years, and then I took a break around 37 years old. I was just really burnt out from working in the corporate world. I was one of very few women often in the class. I was about 10 years younger than the men in the room. And I got a little bit burnt out. That A-type personality, that driving personality, that sales personality. I was in it for the love of human performance, and the company is in it for the love of the ROI, and that's not really aligned. I tried to make that work for as long as I could, but then I just energetically, it was too much for me. My contract ended, and I took some time off. I actually had a pretty bad breakdown with my physical health at that point. It was an early indication of what was to come for me. Just woke up one day and couldn't walk. I was just badly burnt out from, flying everywhere, not really having enough time to sit down, go to the washroom, drink water, eat properly. The stress of that type of high, flashy corporate position, it takes a toll. So I took some time off, and during that time is when I really started to notice what was going on in my personal life, and that's when we started to make those types of decisions in terms of my marriage. And along that, like in this gap, this time frame when I wasn't really working, I started to build out a real estate portfolio. I started to get more savvy with that, and I aligned with a partner, and I built out with her partnership. I think we had 10 houses at one point in time. And then through the divorce, I sold the houses, and then I flipped it and turned it over into buildings. So now I personally own, with some partners, 4 buildings. But that's basically how I got to here. Yeah.
So when you were in that first development course that you took that talked about your mindset, what came up for you during that process of realizing where you came from, where you were? you had to do something, especially if you were overcoming your fear of heights, you're talking to people that had money that you didn't. What went on in your head for you, and what did you do to help overcome that aspect of yourself?
Yeah, so I did the leadership program after I did the painting franchise. Like, so some of them, this is 20 years ago, so some of the main concepts that stick with me today is radical responsibility. And so it's about whatever's happening in your life, you're at the source of it, and you're not at the effect of it. Because as soon as you become at the effect of, you're the victim of, and you lose your power, then you can no longer create. And so it's about, regardless of what's happening, it's like, how can I take responsibility for how I've created this situation to happen, without blaming or becoming defensive? And then see, okay, so where do I need to take responsibility? What do I need to communicate? And how do I restore my integrity? Like, what do I need to put in so that I can make the shifts that I need to make so that I can get my life back on track to the way that I want it to go? And for me, that concept fundamentally altered the trajectory of my life, because I'm constantly looking at, okay, how am I the cause? How am I the source? Rather than where most people do is, you're the cause, you're the source, I'm a victim. And I just choose not to, as much as I can, consciously see for myself. I'm still human. There's still stuff in my blind spots. You got my thumbs up, eh? As much as I can consciously see for myself, I still take a look at what I'm doing in my life and how I'm operating, how I'm behaving, my impact, my energy, my thought process, and my communication. It's like, how did I cause this? And what do I need to clean up? And what do I need to take responsibility for? And then how do I move it forward? So, and then I did take a lot of several communication courses with them. And so then it's about, like, how do you communicate in a way that's generating and creating something, rather than blaming, defensing, stonewalling, withholding, withdrawing, all the toxic forms of communication.
No, that's powerful. That's very powerful, because that's the one thing most people don't do, is take responsibility. It's everyone else's fault and not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that as soon as I decided that, yes, I did create my life the way it is, even though it may have sucked at the time, that, well, I created it. If I don't like it, change it.
Yeah. It's a function of your choices.
I know, right? It's that simple. Either you do something different, or it's what it is. If I don't like where I am today, well, there was a thought process that pulled me to where I am today. If I don't like where this result is, well, then change your mind to doing something else. So I'm always weaving into manipulating myself. Not necessarily, that's not the right word, but I'm just redesigning my thoughts, because everything is coming from my thoughts.
Right. Reprogramming.
Yep. And there was a lot, because I've been transcribing a lot of my shows, and I'm doing the one today about mindset, and I'm being reminded of all sorts of things, that how some of my mindset evolved were events that happened in my life or happened to other people that triggered me that I was unaware of, because we were living in a lot of darkness way back then. In the 80s and 90s and 70s, we were living in darkness compared to where we are today. So
100%.
Learning that about yourself took time.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't as accessible as it is now, for sure. It seems like it's totally a common theme. Yeah.
Exactly. And that was and all I kept saying is, I did what I could do. Yeah. I did what I could do. There were no tools out there, like meditating. How do you meditate? I don't know. Just figure it out, close your eyes, and just go home or whatever.
No, it's true.
But that was it. And whatever happened in those meditations, what I got out of those meditations is how I moved into the next level. But I was learning. This isn't a Bob Proctor or a Mary Morrissey or a Mark Victor Hansen. This isn't any of them. I met all of those people 20 years down the road. Right. This is what I was going through at my young age. And I think it's a gift, because regardless, I mean, you have better tools, because I was helping to lead the field for this kind of light to come into the planet to help people in the next generations, that life gets easier for them. Crazier because of technology, but it's getting easier because the awareness is there. And that's what I think is a gift. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to go in and talk about what you're doing today. And I would love to know how you're taking what you've learned and how you're helping your child with it.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host with The Journey of an Awakening Spirit, and we are talking with Sophie. And we are going to go and ask her a few things as far as what she's doing today. And I would love to know more about the course that you took, about the relationships and how that's showing up with your son and with your new partner.
So one of the things I learned when I took that course called the Sterling Institute of Relationship by Justin Sterling. I'm not sure if he's still running it. It's 20 years ago now. I learned so many things I learned, but one of the things I learned is it was easy for me to emasculinate a man. And I didn't really understand the impact that had on the man, on me, on the relationship. And I had to work hard. It was hard work for me. Because it was like a power play. Like, I feel like that's a power thing when a woman does that, when she like just wants to really dismiss and disempower a man. It's like a power. She wants to take something, like he's not doing something for her in some way. He's not showing up for her. And so rather, like, I'll just use myself. This is how it was for me. So rather than communicate my needs, because that's actually not something that we're conditioned to do. We're conditioned not to do that. So rather than communicate my needs, communicate my boundaries, communicate and uphold my non-negotiables, share my feelings, I go into a shutdown mode and withhold. And then I do something to completely just disempower and emasculate. And that doesn't work in relationship, and that kills relationship. And then therefore you don't experience joy, you don't experience love, you don't experience emotional connection, all the things that we really want. And it's sad because, I didn't know it then, but I can see it now, especially in the work that I do. The way that men and women are socially conditioned is designed to keep us separate. It's not designed to have unity and love. That's not how it is. Like the way the gender roles are created, the way that the messaging for women is, to like not rock the boat, be a good girl, like all of that. And the way men are conditioned, like the toxic masculinity, to like not cry, don't show vulnerability, don't show weak, like all of that, it doesn't work in intimate relationship, and it doesn't work in creating emotional connection for the man or the woman. And yet that's what we're told to do all our lives throughout society. And so it just, for me, I can see it so clearly now. Like, it's just so sad. So it shows up very differently in the relationship that I have now, because I chose a very different partner. My partner now is 18 years younger than I am, so his conditioning is completely different. And I feel like that generation has come in more evolved than a man my own age. Like, they have to do less work because they are already more in touch with their vulnerable side and their feelings, and they're not all of them. I can't say all of them, but what I've noticed. And so for myself who wants that, that was a match for me, and how it shows up with my son specifically is I try to be as patient. We both try to be as patient as possible. And like, I have this whole concept with the terrible twos. It's like, I don't really think it is terrible twos. Twos were not terrible for me. I think it's that the parents don't know how to identify what the child needs. The child doesn't know how to communicate what the child needs. So rather than the parent take responsibility and be like, I'm not figuring that out, I'd rather blame my child that he's a rotten child. That makes me feel like I'm still a good parent. Like, that dynamic, that energetic dynamic is just, it's not something that a lot of parents are taking on. And we take that on. And so we try to constantly be like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? How do we fulfill that need for you? How do we empower you to have as much independent choice as possible? So do you want to wear pants or joggers? Like, to give him as much choice as possible so he feels like he has some control over his life. Because if you really think about it, it's not easy to be a kid. Like, you can't
No.
speak. You can't communicate your needs. You can't communicate your frustrations, your angers. You don't get what you want. You get told what to do all the time. Like, so based on the learnings that I took at a very young, not a very young age, but in my 20s, I try to bring that around and be like, okay, so how am I responsible for what's going on right now with me and my son? And how can I try to identify his need and make sure his need is getting met? And how do I communicate in a way where he feels heard? So now that he's 3, he can communicate a little better. But I did not experience terrible twos. We had hard moments, but I would not say that was a terrible time. No.
Oh, well, the kids at 2, I mean, they're just full of energy. I think that's what most people have issues with, is this kid is just this bouncing ball of energy that's bouncing off the walls, going up and down, having fun, playing, learning tremendous amount because it has movement. So now it's touching and everything's in its mouth and it's feeling everything. And to me, that's what a 2-year-old is they're just exploring their world because they have movement. They're not in a cage in their crib anymore or a playpen. They have movement. Let's go explore. Let's go find the pots and pans and clang them and see what that does.
Yeah, well, what you're pointing to for me is about boundaries, and that's not something I learned until after my marriage. And boundaries, I think, are the crux of life almost,
Yeah.
And I mean, they're in so many different ways. And so what you're communicating to me is when a child is going to explore. I mean, we did not childproof our house. The only thing, we had one chair that we put like some rubber balls on because it was really pointy, but we did not. And we were very consistent with what was okay and not okay. And that was about boundaries. And so I feel like so many people, adult people, don't know their own boundaries, don't know what boundaries are, don't know how to communicate them, uphold them, enforce them. They're scared and they sit inside of people pleasing. They're scared of rejection, abandonment. These are all their childhood wounds. They're scared to not be loved. And so they wobble, which was something I did a lot, was wobble on my boundaries. And it makes your life unworkable. And so I feel like with children, routine and structure and boundaries is really good because it creates predictability, which is good for the ego mind, which is like something for them. It creates certainty, makes them feel safe. They know what they can and cannot do. And I think that's what makes the relationship between parents and children easier.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. People don't have boundaries, so how are they teaching their children boundaries? That's why we have the problems we have with the younger generation, is they have no boundaries. Mom and dad didn't know what to do with them. They put their hands up and it was like, you can have whatever you want. And now we have an out of control younger generation that's going to learn the hard way because it's not going to just happen to them. It's just not going to be magical, or the world is going to say, it's okay, we'll let you pass on this. That's not going to happen. Life doesn't work that way. Life beats you up pretty badly. And if you've got an attitude, if you've got an attitude like that, life is going to come back at you one way or another, either through people that you don't know or people you do know, but it will come back. And so I commend you for teaching your child boundaries, because what a beautiful gift to give your child, that he knows he's being brought up healthy with boundaries, wholesome. He'll know how to conform, so to speak, to society, but not where he's stifled or constrained. Because I think
or abandoning himself.
Yeah, exactly.
he communicates his boundaries well. He's like, "Mommy, not rush me, not rush me. Mommy, slow." Like I tend to be the fast one in the family, you know, between my partner and him. Like I'm the one who operates a little bit more in that energy. They're a little bit more patient and operate from a bit of a different frequency than I do. But he's starting to communicate his boundaries already. Excuse me, I'm talking to daddy.
Wow, that's really good.
That's good. You
Puts
know, I'm like,
mommy in check,
wow.
doesn't it? Like, okay, I've been put in check. I know my place now.
Well, and
That's
I think it's
great.
also really important to acknowledge when you're wrong. You know, like sometimes he'll be like, "Mommy, close your mouth, not talk one mouthful, mommy." And I'm like, "Thank you so much for reminding me." You know, like I think it's important to really reinforce what you're teaching, and then when they bring it back, it's not to have the ego and the power struggle come in. You know.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So tell me, how are you working with women on this? Because you're doing this beautiful job at home, and you're saying you're trying to help women become more empowered and that. So how are you presenting that to your clients?
So really, I help women with it. I call it like the reinvention process. I feel like that's what I did for myself, and that's what a lot of women who specifically are going through heartbreak are experiencing. And heartbreak can show up in so many different ways, right? Like, so it was a health crisis for me, happened to be a romantic love crisis for me, could be the pandemic, it could be death, any type of grief. And I help them understand that the way that we've been conditioned and the fears that we naturally have as human beings, and the relationship that we have with ourselves is actually making us sick. So, for example, if you are not communicating your boundaries, like I did not, that was one of my big mistakes in my marriage. Um, it's me abandoning myself, and that's going to create feelings of insecurity, poor self esteem, doubt. And those negative types of feelings, they start to create anxiety in the body. The more anxiety there is in the body, the more inflammation there is in the body. And inflammation is actually the source of a lot of different diseases, cancer being
Yep.
one of them,
Yep.
irritable bowel syndrome, endometriosis, rheumatoid arthritis, like lupus, all of that. It starts from inflammation, and inflammation is directly correlated to the negative emotions you feel in your body. And if you're wobbling on your boundaries and you're feeling disrespected, and then your sense of self, the way you perceive yourself is like, I had a poor sense of self because I just felt unworthy because I just blamed everyone else. This is what an area wasn't taking responsibility in my relationship, is I just thought that if people loved me, they would respect that. I wouldn't have to uphold it or even communicate it. And that, like, people are not mind readers. And so I feel like that women, they don't have that knowing because of the way we're conditioned. It's like we're conditioned not to know that. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's the way they have power and control over us, and it keeps us suppressed or oppressed, whatever the word is. It keeps us down. And so for me, I've come to, at this point, even like since the last time you and I have talked, is to really start to own that I feel my purpose and why I went through that much heartbreak and why I did get cancer and why I was blessed to be able to thrive through that whole situation, is because my purpose now is to bring that message to women and to really help them see and identify for themselves that if they continue to live inside of guilt and obligation and not do something, let's, for example, communicate, uphold, and enforce their boundaries, it is inevitable, in my opinion, they will get sick in some way. That's how it will manifest. And I don't want that. I don't want other women to wake up the way I did and be diagnosed with breast cancer and be like, crap, I consciously knew I was selling out on myself. Every time I wobbled on my boundary, I was selling out on myself. I knew that. I just thought I was okay to be treated that way and take it so that I could be loved or people please. But if I knew I was going to get cancer because of that behavior, I may have made some very different choices for myself out of a place of being empowered rather than a place of feeling guilty or like I'm taking too much.
Now that makes sense, because what I picked up at the same time when you were talking is, because I wrote the books Dancing Souls and I talked about women. Okay, I'll do this really fast. We have to go to another commercial break.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not your fault. This is just a great conversation we're having, and the time is moving very, very quickly. But I think that women also, a part of what happens to them when we're oppressing ourselves is we lose our sensuality.
Oh,
And
yes.
we forget that we don't have that. And that's a part that a lot of women are really suffering from, is
Yeah.
sensuality, because they forgot how to be a woman, because we are busy demasculating or being the man when we need to be the woman, and our roles aren't defined. And so I'm thinking, with all of what you're saying, that's going to bring that feminine aspect back, because our world so desperately needs to have the feminine energy really thriving, instead of
Yes.
us being the men and the men being the women. And we don't want that. I don't want that. I want a man in my life. Thank
Right.
God I have one. But I had to learn to define me and bring that sensual side of me, and not be what my mother taught me to be, is you can't trust a man. If you want it done, you do it yourself, because men are worthless. I had to change all of that mindset, because that's not the truth of it.
All men are the same. They're not.
Right. And I know that women want to feel sensual. They want to look sexy. They want to feel sexy. They want to have that partnership. But I think we've lost our way so much that we don't know how to get back there. So what a gift that you're bringing women to find that about them, because that's just going to expand into something bigger and broader and more of who they are. But we will continue this in a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are on the journey. We are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network, and this is the journey of an awakening spirit. And we are talking with Sophie today. And I don't know if you have anything you want to say right before we went to commercial break. And if you do, please say it. And then tell them, go ahead and do that, because I'm going to ask you a question afterwards.
Yeah, so just to recap, you were talking about how it's bringing us back to our feminine energy and being empowered and back to our sensuality, and a lot of women are struggling with not having that part of them be alive. And I feel like that all comes down to a sense of self, and at the core of your sense of self, of being able to build your self-esteem, build your self-respect, build your self-love, build your self-confidence. It really does come down to your communication of communicating, upholding, and enforcing your boundaries, because that is what is going to protect your sense of, that's what's going to protect your peace. It's also going to show yourself that when you hold a boundary, you make a promise to yourself and you uphold it. That's going to just expand your confidence. And then when you get to a point where your sense of self is so strong, like, that's hot. That's what's hot. And that's what gets that fire going, And that's what gets that Kundalini energy going, which is the energy of sexuality and sensuality. And it's not like from my own experience, I can't speak from everyone else, but it wasn't a great place to try to engage in some sort of intimate activity when I don't feel so great about myself, when I'm coming at it from a disempowered place. And then there's this other dynamic that's like, is that how I'm getting power? Like that's an old currency for women. Sex is an old currency for women, and it's right. And so, like, let's not go. We don't have to go there anymore. And so if I can help a woman move from having sex be her currency to her sense of self being her currency, and sex is something she gets to experience as a pleasure, that's a completely different way of operating. And I would love to support women through that. And I have, and I do, but I just more of that.
I love it. Well, what is one piece of advice that you would offer our audience to help them move into a different direction to achieve their dream?
One piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your intuition and use your voice to speak your truth, and have the courage to do that.
Love it. So tell our audience how they can get a hold of you.
The best way to reach me is through my Instagram page. It's at the Sophie Deslauriers. So TheSophieDeslauriers. Or you could email me directly at S as in Sam, D as in David, at sophietalks.com. That's SophieTalks.com.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Sophie. I really appreciate our time together. We could go down so many different channels of what you've learned and where you're going with your life. And bless your heart for all the work that you're doing. And you're bringing up a generation that's going to be way better than both of our generations are, by just teaching them some boundaries and how to speak up for himself and give him that confidence and teach him how to be a man. If nothing else, he's going to be a man. That'll be fabulous.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I hope, let's see, where do I want to go? Okay. I want you to be sure to check out the Kathleen M. Flanagan with tools and services that I offer. I do have a 3-minute de-stress meditation that is there, and it doesn't require an email address to access it, and is my gift to you. Also, check out awakeningspirit.com to receive your 40% discount and Grandma's Natural Remedies for the 20% discount. I hope that you enjoyed today's shows. I know I certainly learned a lot from Sophie, and totally grateful for the knowledge and information she brought forward. And if you found any value, please like and or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kathleen M. Flanagan. You will find these shows and tip videos and much more. This is Kathleen Flanagan on the Bold Brave TV network. I hope you all have, for those in the United States, have a very fabulous Thanksgiving weekend, because we all have so much to be grateful for. And from my heart to yours, I will see you next week.
This has been the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.